Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And I'm your host, Amreen Nadeem. In this episode, we're going to discuss something different, like what every organization is looking for. But sometimes it's overlooked, and people usually think that the AI is the most efficient way to go for. But guess what? It's not the AI, it's not the technology, it's not the strategy, it's your people who actually run the system. And if you don't look after your people, your organization will not be able to actually perform as you desire. And that's why our guest today, I'm so honored to have Karen Zeigler. She's the CEO of Human Score, a revolutionary framework designed to measure how human-centered uh, how human-centered an organization could truly be. Her work with founders and CEO around the world to redesign culture, structure, and leadership. So companies don't just scale, they thrive from the inside out. And in this episode, we discuss this exactly that how we can actually make companies' culture more purpose driven. So, anyways, let's welcome Karen Ziegler. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, Abreen, for having me today. I'm very excited to talk to you about unlocking the human potential and how Human Score hopes to help organizational leaders do just that.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have this discussion with you because it's one of my favorite, as you know, as we were talking just before that, that like my doctorate degree is in applied neurosciences in leadership. And I think it's very close that how we can unlock their potential, especially at the workplace. So this is
Yeah.
like my personal interest as well.
Yes, I get
Yeah.
it. I'm a neuroscience nerd myself, though. I certainly am not have the courage to go for a doctorate degree in it, but I do dabble in it and love what I learn about neuroscience. It's just phenomenal and part of the human that we all are, right? Understanding
Yeah.
ourselves and others better. It's a great tool for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've actually just gave a very brief introduction about you, but tell us about your journey. That how did you started? What struggles you faced? What challenges came during the journey? So just tell us about your journey.
Yeah, when I saw some of your questions, I it made me think back, of course, and for me, it started where whether people know it or not, it often starts, and that's with your trauma. Um,
Yeah.
when I was headed into college, thinking about what I wanted to do, I thought little about my potential. Um, and what I was capable of or what I was interested in, and more about how could I get as far away from possible as to one of the traumas that I had experienced as a
Mm.
child that I felt like I had the most agency to impact, and that was poverty and not being able to provide for our needs as a family when I was young, and so I set out to get as far away from that trauma as I possibly could. And that's how I started um, getting my degree in finance, a BS in finance. And so I went from there. Um, but it was once I graduated college and got into banking that I really became obsessed with leadership and personal development and began to, and I didn't recognize it at the time, but my obsession with leadership and personal development, came from all angles, not just physically what leaders are supposed to do, but also mentally how they think, what influences their thinking, the psychology, the neuroscience of it. Um, and even spiritually. So everything about the human became a personal obsession for me because obviously I was young and leading a team at that point and hadn't a clue about leadership and leading a team or leading others. So understanding myself as a human and also the people I was leading as humans became an obsession for me. And I didn't realize until much later in life that that obsession was an autistic trait, one that, you just cannot let go of because you're wired for that obsession. And it was then that I recognized that all that obsession was trying to fix myself in a way that couldn't be fixed, right? I wasn't here to be fixed. I was here to create. And so I had to review all I had learned, and that turned into a new obsession into how do we help leaders recognize the potential and not focus on the task more necessarily or what needs to be fixed, because there's really nothing that needs to be fixed. There are things we can learn on the way, absolutely, that will enrich us, but it's the human potential that we want to unlock, and it's there and just needs to be developed and grown, not necessarily fixed.
Yeah, amazing. Your work is very inspiring, especially like I know that when we met and then you were leading like Octopus Movement, and there also your work is brilliant, and I was very, very impressive, and especially your journey. I can so much relate to what you said, because I think I had the same kind of beginning when I started my journey. I had shared, like I'd faced like financial problems, and that's how I think those moments make us think about lots of things which may, like, people may not think about it. So I think those are the
Sure.
things that push you to actually think in the directions about maybe about the human behavior, human mind, and that's how I got into it as well. That just about to
Sure.
understand that what's happening in human mind, why people behave the way they behave,
Yeah.
and it's really fascinating. The more you learn about human mind, it's truly fascinating. You're in awe like all the time, and you just try to understand more and more. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, like you just mentioned that you had this kind of a trauma that led you into this. But if, if I ask you, what could be the one pivotal moment, or maybe like there could be some pivotal moment that push you to rethink that, maybe how rethink or how you can make the culture in a way that help people to utilize uh, their potential in the perfect way.
Yeah. Well, the first decade of my career was in the banking world, and it was during merger mania. So every couple years, we were involved in a new merger. We were merging two different organizations. I got pegged pretty quickly to have the ability to take the losers on both sides, the ones that barely made the layoff cut, and then turn them into a cohesive team that was performing in the top 10%. And two things came out of that. One was something that I wish leaders would recognize in their high performers, because I kept every 2 years, I would get another promotion, a bigger branch, another merger, more losers on the bottom that, just didn't make the cut. And if they didn't do well in this new team, then they would be cut. And so I was rewarded for the metrics, and I think this is why organizations lose high performers today, because they're focused on the metrics and not necessarily how they obtain the metrics. What was really driving me wasn't meeting the metrics. It was the way in which I thought about things. And it was the innovation and how I brought all those pieces together. And so they didn't see the true value. All they saw my value as is, oh, she can produce the numbers. They didn't see the value of, how does she do that? Bring two losing teams together and create a winner. How does she design it in a way that works? And so I think that's a big issue that I learned from that situation. The other coming out of that, I got tired of the treadmill of metrics and doing the same thing over and over again. I didn't want the same challenge on a bigger scale. I wanted a different challenge because that's how design thinkers usually operate. So I went into the investment world. I had had my daughter about that time. And so I wanted to step away from managing people. And about the time I'd moved into that role in the bank at the private equity firm, my mentor of the first 10 years was let go. She was a senior manager. She'd been with the bank 30 years. And I was just like, that is not happening to me. I'm not going to invest 30 years of my life in an organization for them to say, I'm too old and I make too much money, so you got to go. And that's happening today. Citigroup just announced last week that they're about to lay off senior leaders. And I think companies need to move beyond, if I chop off enough people at the bottom and that doesn't get the profits that I need, then I start chopping at the top because the salaries are higher and that's going to get the profits of what we need. That's not it. It's the human potential that produces the profits that they need. And that's the hard work that leaders have to face.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, it's people, especially at the top, maybe they don't realize that, just slashing people maybe does not only increase their profitability. Maybe it works for short term, but in long term, they lose credibility. And even they actually, the people who are working, they make it like they work in a fearful state, like that they would just say if it can happen to some of their colleague, it's going to happen to me as well. So they will not work with their passion. So the thing is that companies need to realize that it's not profit over people, it's profit and people. That's what I'm a great fan of David Dibble, who always says this. So I really like what he says, that this needs to be done. The system needs to be changed. It cannot be, you cannot churn out through adding more stress. So you're doing such great work in that. So I just want to move into this other question, that you are a CEO of Humaniscore, and it's the name itself sounds very attractive and very intriguing. That what is Humaniscore? So tell us a bit about it, that what it is and how it helps leaders.
Yeah, well, the story behind the Humaniscore, we're a global organization. Obviously, our builder Cliff Lewis is out of South Africa, and our other co-founder with Cliff is Perry Knoppert. He's out of the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, they have what's called the Nutri-Score, where if you go into a grocery store and you look at frozen pizza, and if one scores a D and one scores an A, then the A pizza is more healthy for you than the D pizza. And it was inspired by his thought that what if we could give organizations a human score for how healthy they were for humans. And so that is the inspiration behind the name and behind what we do, in that we are giving organizations a score of how healthy they are for humans. And we do that in a way that shows them the impact of those humans and their lived experience on 5 key areas of the organization, which drive profits. And those are work design, work structure, so the organizational structure, culture, as well as decision making and fairness. And so, all of those categories impact an organization and their profits. And Humaniscore is the first measure of that human-centeredness, and it tells companies how those conditions, those lived experiences inside those 5 lenses, are either adversely affecting their company, problematic for their company, or limiting their company. Of course, also the positive sides of that too, what they're doing well for them. But it gives them a compass for change. We see this with AI. AI has always been, or digital transformation or change within organizations has always been targeted at the latest technology. oh, here's this new shiny object. We must change our organization so that it can run on this now. When effective change is not based on chasing any any shiny objects, it's based on what is it that the humans inside the organization need to do their jobs more effectively. And that includes AI. It certainly doesn't exclude it, but it starts with where the change is needed. Because if you go where people are welcoming change, it's a lot easier to change than if you push change upon someone where it ignores what their needs are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is very important. I think every company should have this kind of a score, because that is how they know that what is happening in the company. But I just want to know that how do you actually calculate this score, that they are, what is the score of, like you mentioned, like 4 areas, right? So like in the culture or in the capability, or so how do you actually measure these scores?
Well, there's 5 dimensions, like I said: work design, structure, or culture, decision making, and fairness. And each of those dimensions has 8 subscales. So each one has another category. So we assess those through their employees. And so we get that. And then that information calculates the score. It gives them an ability to measure it. It comes with recommendations for how to have an impact on it. It also can break it down into demographics. So if you're a global corporation and you want to know what's affecting, say, Europe versus the US, you can look at that information. It's a very intuitive tool. And the best part about it, it not only tells you, like with AI, for instance, if you have a score and say, I would imagine most organizations today, their score is going to show they have an area in work design that needs to be touched upon. Because if you think about it, all the failures with AI that you're reading about right now are because the work design wasn't correct, and the bottlenecks in the structure are causing problems. These are things that are making AI unable to be adopted. But they are also the things that humans and employees have been complaining about for years, decades even. And so it's very interesting how AI is mirroring the human experience, because AI cannot work when work design and structure are not correct. But we've expected humans to do that for so long. And so anyway, they can see, okay, work designs, for instance, needs our attention. What can we change to effectively create a better work design? And so that's going to help them with that AI implementation. So it's not one or the other. We choose AI over humans or humans over AI. Actually, which is another lesson that AI is teaching us, is that we co-create the best experience together.
Yes, absolutely. This is something that I think most of the organizations are like, even people in the organization are asking that, AI is replacing human or something. But I think it is more important that we work together to enhance our performance. And that is what is more important, instead of like, slashing those jobs and something. It's important that we teach our employees that how to use AI effectively, so they can perform better, I think, which is a better route, instead of like, just slashing those jobs and making those people work more in a way that, to use AI. But like, there is one limitation for AI, is that AI doesn't have the ethics and values and creativity. And I think that is something that should never be compromised. And if people think that AI can replace that, I doubt that. At least not in. At least I don't see it. I don't know. What are your views in that? Do you think that AI can replace those human values or human creativity in a way? Because at the end of the day, a lot of people just say that, at the end of the day, these are just the algorithms, that how our brain works. So what are your thoughts on it?
AI is a reflection of the user, and so I think it's important and our approach in implementing AI, we certainly are pro AI because we feel that AI has the opportunity to create a renaissance in the workplace, a renaissance where humans do reach towards their full potential, where they are able to explore their creativity and create innovations that we can't even fathom at this moment. So we looked at AI as a way to aid or assist humans, a way to automate the stuff that drains their energy and is boring to them, and ultimately a way to amplify their gifts and talents, to make what they have and possess within them to be done faster, quicker, and to reach, more people with it.
Yeah, that's true. That it's just that how we use it, it's much better. And we're getting really good comments, just as Mark is saying that it's not the sorry, yeah, it's not only the people within the organization; it is how the organization treat its public, its prospects, and retain its clientele too. So absolutely, yeah.
And I think AI is facilitating this. For the last decade, companies have been all about customer experience. We got to improve the customer experience. And now what AI is causing leaders to face is that the greatest factor in the customer experience is the human in the loop. And, the leadership experience, I would ask leaders today, do you like the experience you're having or not in your life? Because the experience you're having as a leader is, and this is the math equation for you, EX plus CX. It's a combination of your employees' experience and your customers' experience. If those two are having a positive experience, guess what? Your experience as a leader is going to be much more positive and much more successful.
Wow. I love this formula. This is, you need to work together instead of like taking these two as a separate, like employees and customer. But I think you need to keep both satisfied so they can because customers are something like you gain the profitability, but the main drivers to have that profitability is definitely your employees. So I think both are equally important. It's not something that you need to give priority to one over the other. I think they both have their role to play. So absolutely.
Yes. But when you understand the human, which you and your neuroscience studies, you'll remove the labels altogether. There isn't a separate leader from employee from customer. We're all humans, and we all have needs, and at a deep level, they're all the same, right? To be seen, heard, and valued for what we bring to the world. And it's has the potential to unite us in ways that perhaps hasn't happened before.
Yeah, absolutely. So just tell us that what challenges or problems or difficulties you face when you actually introduce this concept of humanist score to the organization. That do they take it as like, because most of the time, like they do, some companies do claim that they prefer or they put the humans at the forefront, but sometimes it's not the case when you actually go into the organization. So tell us a bit about what challenges you face when you go to the organization and just tell them about the humanist core.
Yeah, well, a couple of challenges. First of all, is that the number or the percentage of companies that are in fact human-centered is less than 10%. And so for any new idea to take flight, it needs to reach the tipping point, which is estimated between 10 and 25%. So we're at the very edge of reaching the tipping point where people see human centricity as a mainstream idea. So that's first and foremost. So it's very much educating on what does human centricity mean? How does it impact? Even though Design Management Institute has done a study to show that organizations that employ human-centered design outperform the S&P 500 by 219%. People still are doubters, quite frankly, just because of where it's at in the life cycle of an idea. And so, part of the challenge is educating them. Part of the challenge is getting them to see, and that's what I love about the human score. It allows them to see in real numbers, which that's what leaders focus on much of the time, is the numbers, what the human impact is. And so it gives them a different lens for looking at, what it takes to improve the performance of their organization.
Yeah,
but it is a
absolutely.
challenge just because we're changing a mindset here. And from neuroscience, the how we affect change in the mind is not an easy task. But it's really all about, how do we shift leaders from thinking about the ROI, the return on investment, to the ROI of the return, or should I say the loss, on ignoring the people in their workplace. So it's a different ROI, but I think the impact is much greater.
Yes, I think it's very important that you need to understand, like people need to understand that the return on investment from the loss perspective, that if they don't listen to the human or to the customer or employees, that how it's going to impact. And we got a very nice comment from Christine, and she said, "Love it, mic drop moment. AI can't function under poor work design, and neither can humans. So happy to be creating with you, Karen and Abrina. I'm always delighted to be in your energy." So thank you for sharing this comment. Yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Yes, Chrissy and she's an AI educator and one of the consultants at the Human Score. And so we're excited to be co-creating with her a course on designing a workplace renaissance. So, and it's going to be offered through SRIM, Society of HR Management. So if people are looking to get their continuing education credits, be on the lookout for Workplace Renaissance, which is going to help give leaders the tools that they need to design work in a way that unleashes the human potential and the creativity and the critical thinking and all the things that AI cannot do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Courtney has also joined. So thank you so much. Courtney is a dear friend. So she's joined. Yeah. Anyway, so I know, like you started this recently, this humanist score, is it? So I know that people are more sometimes skeptical also that, so what do you think, what are the misconceptions attached to the humanist scores? Like people do think that yes, it can work, but there are also, they may over exaggerate or may expect more, that it can transform something. So what do you think, what are the myths or the misconceptions attached to it?
Well, the misconceptions are pretty easy to spot because you see it in the headlines all the time recently. And that is that, whether it's Gen Z or whether it's Gen X or whether it's, the work from home people, the challenges with the humans and whatever label you put on them are not worth the effort. All the juice is not worth the squeeze kind of comment. And so, that is the misconception, because I think it was a study in the 60s. I forget the name, where the teacher was told to take one group of students and assume that they were the most talented, most gifted students that were ever to cross her path, and then to treat another ones like they knew nothing, they were not going to get it, blah, blah, blah. And the outcome of that research was phenomenal in that, students that truthfully tested, maybe like they wouldn't accomplish much, accomplished great things. And I think, that's the misconception, that humans are not worth the effort, that, their generation or their whatever phase of life, whatever label you want to put on them, is not worth the effort. And that's not true. People rise to your level of expectations. And if you discount them and discard them and all the things, that's exactly what you get. We do reap what we sow. Where attention goes, energy, what's Tony Robbins saying? Where attention goes, energy flows. So exactly. So, it does all come down to how we think. And our outcomes usually affirm what we're thinking. And I think the outcomes that organizations are getting with AI are definitely affirming their mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the concept you have introduced is really amazing, that which help people to, open their eye and see that what they are missing out on, especially on human capabilities and human potential. So I think this is such an amazing tool that you have introduced, and it's much, much needed. And you must have actually like lots of humanist score for different companies or something. What do you think that in the current era the leaders are? Do you think that they are more connected with their team member, or is still working in the silos and working to just reach their numbers and to meet the targets? What are the current trends you've seen so far?
We've started hosting a couple of things, and we also had a Global Human-Centered Organization Award last year. And obviously we are just starting, so the people that were nominated or participated was small, but it was so heartwarming to interview those leaders that were nominated, to see how they really are doing the activities that include everyone, take everyone's perspective, recognize the connection between employee experience and customer experience. It's just delightful to interview those leaders and see that there are organizations out there that are doing the work and doing the good work. They may not be meeting the headlines or grabbing the attention of the media, which we know that's skewed for fear and whatever else. But it was very heartwarming to see that leaders want to do well by their employees, and they understand that doing well by their employees does well by their organization, and that they prosper in that way. And we're seeing that as we start to launch Human Score Live events every month as well, where leaders from around the globe come to talk about, the various aspects of human-centered leadership. And, it's amazing it's a very interactive experience. And so people share their stories and their experiences, what's working and what's not. And so it's just great to see that is getting that thought and that, desire to see the human potential reached is growing. And so I do think that we're making an impact on reaching that tipping point.
Amazing. That's really amazing. In fact, a couple of months, actually, maybe last year, I was having a conversation with one of the CEOs of a multinational company. And he actually said the same thing, that now he's changed the trend, especially in the current leadership, that and even the employees, like people demand that they need to be heard. And and when they feel that the environment is so suffocating and the culture is not helping them, they're not afraid to quit. Because he was like comparing with his time when he was like young and like long time back, or maybe like the generation like we've grown up with. So we used to accept whatever the boss is saying. We take the pressure, and then we just nowadays. Not only the leaders, even the teammates and the people also, they're not taking whatever the boss is saying. If they think the culture is not good, they are not afraid to leave it. So I think that's also a
Yeah.
big change that we've seen over the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all these things are converging. AI and the need to implement it, and its requirement of work designs that work and structures that don't bottleneck and decisions that are made in order. That's causing leaders to rethink how they treat humans. The generations, Gen Z and the millennials all saw our generations, follow the boss's orders, do what, and they saw where it got us, right? Like
Yes.
me watching my lifelong mentor Julie get fired. What did her lifelong yes sirs get her? Nothing, but fired. And so they've learned from us in the way that I'm not going to tolerate what they tolerated, because what use is it? So I think there's a lot of cultural things, obviously, all the geopolitical conflicts that are coming up, where people are rising up with their various opinions. So I think it's a convergence of things that are challenging this opinion of humans and their value, and what impact they can make, and how we can work with them rather than try to control them.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a very good comment by Mr. Fayad. He was there also on like two episodes back. So he was just saying most of the he's actually a proponent of resilience approach, and it seems to be like very much resonating with this. And he's also had a question that how can we build balance between process and people to achieve great outcomes?
For me, it comes down to design. You have to, another word that is used, thrown around, I wouldn't say it's being implemented as much as it can be, is co-creation. So designing. In my early leadership days, I didn't recognize it until much later that I was using the aspects of design thinking to achieve the team performance that I had. That team performance had little to do with me and a lot to do with what were the ideas and thoughts and lived experience of my team that would help them thrive. In philosophy, they talk about the obstacle is the way. And I think leaders need to recognize if your employees have an obstacle, your job as a leader, to the best of your abilities, is to help remove that obstacle so that they can keep going forward towards their goals. If they're not reaching them, and they're not, in my opinion, because I saw it happen firsthand, if they're not going above and beyond them, then you're leaving obstacles in their way, because people want to show up and do well. They want to succeed. But sometimes the work design, the structure, all those things, become invisible barriers that really slow them down, or quite frankly, mentally exhaust them, and they give up. So it's all about designing, co-creating the solutions to the problems, and it creates meaningful work, because, if I'm a frontline employee and this is an obstacle I'm facing every day that's slowing me down, for me to be in on the creation of the solution to that problem, that's meaningful to me, because you're improving my workday, right? So it's all interrelated, and for so long we've seen it as disconnected and unrelated. So that was what I would encourage leaders to begin designing with your team, to remove the obstacles that slow them down, because you have no idea of the actual potential and performance that can be made when those are removed. And thank you, AI, because it's creating the catalyst for that to happen.
Yes, I think it's a wonderful advice that you shared, that it has to be done with them, like making them involved in that. Instead, like you can't just give them this, just directives and just some orders that, you need to do this. They need to be involved in the decision making. And when it comes from them, it comes with more commitment and it comes with more responsibility, that they take the responsibility of this. So I think that's a
Yeah.
wonderful point.
Talk about
Absolutely.
creating engagement, creating ownership, all the things that leaders are like, how do I get my employees to do that? Yeah, this is how.
Yeah, absolutely. Just involve them. I think it's very much linked with, I would just say, with the parenting as well, because I was just remember that once my professor was like having this our class and was saying that leadership is very much like parenting, that you have to take care of the kids. It's just same as like you have to take care of your team as well. So
Yeah.
it's just like that. And
Yes.
yeah, I think Christine has given a very good comment also. Minimizing those obstacles mean that these leaders need to be able to connect and understand the impact of these obstacles bring
Yeah.
in human score. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a good point Christine makes. And I think that's a disconnect or a misunderstanding about empathy. We think that leaders, to be more empathetic must, understand the feelings of their employees. Well, I don't know. Half the time, I don't even understand my own feelings and where they're coming from.
Yeah.
How can I understand the feelings of other people? But
Yeah.
it's more about what is causing those feelings and can I do something about that? And so, the mental health crisis in organizations, the stress, the, retention, all those things come from,
Yeah.
feeling unheard. But beyond that, you did listen, you did send out the survey and I told you what I needed, but you didn't do anything about it. So,
Yeah.
how caring are we if we
Yeah.
know the things that are causing people pain and it's within our power to do something about it and we do nothing? I
Yeah.
think
It's
that's the
taken.
real challenge of empathy. It's not about understanding anyone's feelings. It's about when it's in our responsibility to help them and we do nothing, that's when we're seen as cold and uncaring.
Absolutely. I think you've just said so beautifully that this is actually empathy, that it's just knowing what's happening and not taking action. I think that caused most frustration or something.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, I know we can go on and on in this, but I think the time is
Yeah.
limited. And we got a wonderful audience who are actually sharing the nice comments and asking questions. So anyways, the time of our show is about to be finished. But before
Yeah.
we end our show, I would just ask you that what one piece of advice would you like to give to our audience today? So to become better leaders.
Yeah. Well, since everyone's challenged with implementing AI or doing something with AI, and since I'm a lover of design thinking and co-creating, I would say in your day-to-day over the next few weeks, months, I would put it in what design thinking calls a how might we statement. And I would just ask, how might we implement AI in a way that helps you reach your highest potential?
Yes.
And begin to listen to what your employees share. And they may not even know what that highest potential is, but if we get them to think about, we always know the contrast, right? So they're going to know the things they hate, the things they don't like, the things that drain their energy, that keep them unfocused on what their goals are. So, just open the dialogue with how might we begin
Yeah,
to
I think
implement AI in a way that unlocks the human potential in this organization.
amazing. That's amazing advice. And thank you so much for this wonderful
Yeah.
conversation. I really learned a lot from you. And I can definitely see that the comments and the people are sharing that how much they've learned from you. So it's already like, I
Yeah.
know that our audience have learned a lot from you. So tell us a bit that what is the best way to actually reach out to you?
Yes. Well, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn at Karen Zeigler. Also, want to dig more into the human score. Our white paper is pinned on the human score LinkedIn page. That'll give you a deep dive into how the human score was built. but also to request a demo or just to request a conversation with me. My email is karen@humanscore.info,
Okay.
info.
That's great. I'll actually also share your email in the comment section so people guys find it easy to connect with you. So anyways,
Yeah.
thank you so much for this
Yes.
wonderful discussion. I just loved it.
Thank you, Abreen. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for all those audience who've been sharing the comments and making this conversation more lively. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'll get on those comments next.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.